Hi, this is Bill Kenower for Author Magazine, and today I'm in the offices of the University of Washington with author Shawn Wong. Shawn, welcome to Author.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
So do you remember when you first realized this was something you wanted to really do full-time in some capacity?
Right.
Because it's a big decision to be made.
Yeah. So the first time I thought about it was the second creative writing class that I took. And you could sign up for this thing called directed writing, which was sort of like individual one-on-one.
Oh, okay.
Even as a undergraduate. And the first instructor on the list as alphabetical order was Boyle. And so I just signed up for her class, not knowing anything about her.
Right.
And I stumbled upon my mentor.
Wow.
You know? And she was a great American writer. You know, at that time she was in her 60s already. And signed up for her class, you know, which was just her and me.
Right. Oh, how nice.
And I started, and she demanded that everything I write be relevant to what's going on in our lives, right, around us. And at that time, San Francisco State was under siege, right? You know, anti-Vietnam War protests, ethnic studies demonstrations, establishment of ethnic studies. S.I. Hayakawa took over as president. Police were on campus. It was just, you know, it was
just in your face, wasn't it?
It was a police state.
Wow.
On campus. And, and students went on strike. You know, the university was shut down. Lots of classes were held off campus. Kay Boyle used to have her classes in her house. And then she became my mentor. And, you know, and
what did that mean in practical terms?
Kay Boyle lived in a 4-story Victorian mansion in the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco.
Well, she was right there, huh?
And she had her own separate apartment on the top floor, and she rented out the rest of the house. And so I moved into her house.
Wow.
So it really was master and apprentice.
Wow.
And so I had 24-hour access to my teacher, but it also meant she had 24-hour access to me. But yeah, it was really amazing because what I learned from her was not just how to be a writer, but I learned from her how to live my life as a writer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
By watching her, right, and observing her. And, you know, she would come downstairs. My bedroom was right underneath her bedroom. She would come downstairs and say stuff like, "I didn't hear you writing last night."
Oh, sure.
You know, typewriter, right? And I could hear her typing away up there, you know, for hours a day. I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is really putting a lot of pressure on me. And so she could ask for my homework and the rent at the same time. You know?
Wow.
I remember one day I came home from school and I was sorting out the mail for the people who lived in the house. And I put my books down on the foyer table, and she came downstairs from her apartment, and she pointed at the top book, which was The Dubliners. And she goes, "Oh, I see you're reading Jim's book."
Did she know him?
I go, "Jim?" I said, "Do you know James Joyce?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah."
She did?
Yeah.
Wow, so one step removed.
So she lived in Paris in the 1920s.
Get out.
And if you look at the pictures of the cafes, you know, Ernest Hemingway, you know, Joyce, she's in those pictures.
Holy.
She's 21 years old.
Oh my God, and she was your teacher.
And she's in those pictures.
That's fantastic.
And she says, "Oh yeah, I know Jim. There's a filing cabinet downstairs with his letters in them. You can go read them."
Oh, did you?
And so I went down there and I read them, and there's letters from Beckett, letters from William Carlos Williams, you know. Wow. It was like
all the modernists,
canon, right?
Wow. Right. Holy smokes.
And what she taught me was, she didn't teach me technique, you know, like, okay, let's write third person omniscient. Right. She would just say, everything you write needs to show your belief. It has to have your belief in it.
When you go sit down to the page these days,
yeah.
What brings you back there? Aside from the fact that this is what you do, but what is calling you back?
I think I went into writing because it's the hardest thing I can think of doing.
Good.
Right? You know, you're looking at that blank page or that blank screen.
Yeah.
And you get to decide what goes on there. Right? And you
All
sit
the mistakes
there,
are yours.
and you sit there and you say to yourself, I got nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then, 3 hours later, you have 8 pages.
Yeah.
From I got nothing to 8 pages, right?
Yeah.
I love that experience,
Yeah.
because it's so humbling. And
I tell my students, I always sit down and think, I've got nothing. That is where every single day starts.
yeah, or it's even worse. It's like I'm a fraud.
Right. I never had anything.
I never had anything.
It was a mirage,
And
those
I'm
books.
doomed to failure.
That's right. Do you tell your students that you go through that? Because it's so important. Because here you are, you've had the success, you're the professor, but you still can feel, you still have to stay humble.
My novel, Americanese, my agent sold it to Simon & Schuster after I only wrote 100 pages. Right?
Wow.
And Simon & Schuster said, okay, send us an outline for the rest of it, right? So I wrote an outline, just
whatever, right?
I wrote a long outline of every chapter after that, but just made it up because I'm a fiction writer. And so they signed me to this contract and said, okay, deliver the book a year later. So I always tell this story to my students. 11 months later, guess how many pages I had?
110.
I had 110.
Oh, you did?
He hit it right on the spot. I had 10 more pages than I had a year ago or 11 months ago.
Wow.
And then I get this letter in the mail from Rockefeller Foundation. And they said they granted me a 1-month residency at their compound in Bellagio, Italy, which is on the shores of Lake Como, right? And I'm going, okay, I guess I better go. Because, I got a month to go here. And I started working. In fact, I wrote the entire novel in 1 month. I just sat down and I started working, and I wrote the whole thing. And there were other writers there. The one that was there the longest with me, where people are always rotating in and out, was Susan Sontag.
No kidding. Oh, neat.
And so one day I was down in the village walking around, sort of contemplating my life as a fraud and a failure. And I remember Susan saying, well, how's it going? I said, I'm the world's worst writer. And she goes, really? And I go, yeah. And she says, I was working on my novel once, The Volcano Lover. And when I reread a chapter I wrote, I had used the word really 24 times. Really dark, really far. And she said to me, have you ever written that badly? And I go, no. And she goes, you feel better? I go, yeah, thanks.
Cool is that?
That was very generous of her.
Very generous of her. That's nice.
And then another thing she said to me was, she goes, okay, I got a math problem for you. If you wrote 1 page a day for an entire year, how long would your manuscript be? And I go, 365 pages. She goes. And so I was really grateful for her, generosity of simplifying it, and it helped me get through the book. I finished it. I turned it in on time, and of course, I went from I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, and a fraud, to when I turned it into my editor at Simon & Schuster, I said, not a single word needs to be changed, right?
Oh, God.
And then, of course, she sends it back to me, and there's not a single page where there isn't something written in the margin.
Of course.
Right? But it was really a great experience.
Well, Shawn, I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
One more. What I'd like you to do is finish this sentence.
All right.
If all the writing you've ever done has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
Oh, I think it taught me to be truthful and honest, because that's when when you're rereading your work, and what you want to do is be able to look at it and say to yourself, that's exactly what I meant to say in my heart and in my mind. I want to be able to recognize it. And the only way to recognize it is to be able to see honesty in the words, as well as what Kay Boyle taught me, belief. I want to be able to see my belief on the page, and it's genuine.